Have you ever wondered why your backyard goes completely silent minutes before a single raindrop hits the ground? Why the feeder's empty, the branch is still, and the whole yard seems to hold its breath like it knows something you don't? Something is happening out there right now that most people will never notice in their entire lives, and once you see it, you will never look at a rainy morning the same way again. Before we go any further, if you love the quiet mysteries of the natural world, hit that subscribe button. Tap the like and share this with one person who feeds birds in their yard, because what I'm about to tell you belongs in their head too, and it costs you nothing to pass it along. Now let's step into the rain together, because what happens next is stranger, smarter, and far more emotional than you think. Picture your backyard about 20 minutes before a summer storm. The light shifts, the air feels heavier, the leaves on the maple tree stop moving in that specific way that makes the whole scene feel paused. And then you notice it. The feeder that had a small crowd of finches on it just a moment ago is suddenly empty. The cardinal that was working through sunflower seeds is gone. The nuthatch that was hopping down the trunk has vanished. You didn't see them leave. They just left. Most people watch this moment and think the birds went somewhere safe to hide, that they tucked themselves into some cozy little corner and are simply waiting the weather out like a passenger. But that idea, comforting as it sounds, is almost completely wrong. What your birds are doing is not passive. It is not lazy. It is not simple hiding. It is one of the most careful, calculated, and deeply intelligent survival routines. And it plays out dozens of times every single year while you are inside sipping coffee or working at your desk. You have been watching the opening scene of this drama for years. You have never seen the rest. So today, we're pulling back the curtain. We're going to walk through exactly what your birds sense, feel, and decide. From the moment the pressure starts falling to the moment the last drops hit the ground and beyond. And I promise, the final piece of this story is something almost no bird lover ever thinks about. Once it clicks in your mind, the next rainy morning in your yard is going to feel like a completely new experience. Let's start with something that will genuinely shake you. Your birds know the rain is coming long before you do. And the way they know is not instinct in some vague, romantic sense. It is a real, measurable physical ability. Deep inside a bird's inner ear and scattered through tiny pressure sensors in its body is a system that reads the atmosphere. It picks up shifts in air pressure with a precision that would embarrass most of the weather instruments on your porch. As a storm system rolls in, the pressure in the air drops slowly, quietly, and invisibly. You can't feel it. Your dog can't really feel it. But your birds absolutely can. They feel it in their bones, in their skulls, and in the tiny hollow spaces inside their feathers. And they respond to it immediately with a purpose that looks almost human. Scientists at the University of Minnesota once tracked bird feeder activity alongside storm patterns, and what they found was startling. In the hours leading up to a serious rain event, feeding activity did not slow down. It exploded. Birds were showing up in larger numbers, eating faster, staying longer, and burning through seed at a high rate. They weren't reacting. They were preparing. They were loading their small bodies with fuel, because they knew somehow that the next few hours were going to make eating very difficult. That's why the feeder feels strangely alive on those gray, still afternoons when the sky looks slightly wrong. That's the window. That's the moment before. And the smallest birds are often the most dramatic examples. The ruby-throated hummingbird, a creature that weighs less than a nickel, can pick up on minute barometric shifts. Researchers have actually used hummingbird behavior as a live sensor in some field studies. A hummingbird will suddenly switch to almost non-stop feeding in the hour before a real storm hits. It is racing to build up its reserves before the insects it depends on disappear into the shelter of leaves. So here's a small experiment you can try. The next time your feeders seem oddly, urgently busy, don't dismiss it. Walk over to your phone, check the radar. You will almost always find rain moving in your direction. Your birds knew before your weather app did. Now let's talk about what most people get completely wrong. The average person imagines a wet bird looking like a wet dog, soaked, heavy, miserable, cold. And that image is so common that it shapes how people think about rain and wildlife in general. But the truth of what happens to a bird's body in the rain is far more delicate and interesting. In some cases, it is far more dangerous than most people ever realize. A bird's feathers are not just raincoats. They are water resistant in a much more clever, layered, and fragile way. On the outside, most songbirds have contour feathers coated in a natural oil from the uropygial gland. Watch a bird preen sometime. You'll see it dip its beak toward its lower back and run it across feathers. That is not fussy grooming. That is a survival system in motion. The bird is spreading oil. It is straightening tiny structures called barbules and creating a surface where water beads up and rolls off. In a soft rain, this system works beautifully. Water slides off the back of the bird like a waxed car. But in a heavy, long, cold rain, that system can be overwhelmed. Once the outer feathers become saturated, the layer of soft down underneath loses its shape. And that down is not just fluff. It is the bird's insulation that traps warm air against the body. When that layer collapses, heat pours out of the body at a shocking rate. And that is when a tiny bird can slide into real trouble in a matter of minutes. This is why what looks like passive sheltering is actually a race to find the densest cover. The middle of a cedar, the inside of a rose bush, or the heart of a brush pile. Somewhere the rain gets broken up before it reaches the body. And the bird does not just sit there. It positions itself with careful intention. Its back turns to the wind. Its head tucks in a specific direction. It compresses its feathers into a shape that sheds water more efficiently than relaxed feathers can. That fluffed, hunched shape you see is not the bird looking cute or sad. It is armor. This means the shrubs and messy corners in your yard are literally the difference between life and death. If that hit you the way it hit me, take a second right now to drop a comment with the word ready. And if this channel is the kind of place you want to spend time in, tap the like button. It genuinely helps the video reach other people who care about their backyards the way you do. Now let's keep going, because the next part changes how you look at certain birds forever. Not every bird runs for cover. Some birds keep working right through the rain, and once you understand why, you will see them in a completely different light. The American robin is the classic example. You know the scene. The sky is dark and the rain is steady. Your yard is silent and the feeders are empty. And there in the middle of the wet lawn is a robin. Head cocked, steps measured, pulling worms out of the grass like nothing unusual is happening. People often assume that robin is confused or unlucky or just too dumb to come in out of the rain. None of that is true. That robin is a specialist doing exactly what its body was built to do. Rain does something strange to earthworms. It pushes them toward the surface of the soil. Scientists still argue about exactly why, pointing to vibrations, oxygen levels, or the simple physics of water. Whatever the exact cause, the effect is undeniable. When it rains, worms come up. And robins suddenly have access to a food supply that's 10 times richer than any other moment in the day. On top of that, a robin's body is well suited to wet weather, as it is a relatively large songbird. Larger bodies lose heat more slowly than tiny ones, allowing the robin to keep working longer. What you're watching is not a stubborn bird, but a bird doing math. It's weighing the discomfort of being wet against the reward of a rare, easy meal. And it has decided the food is worth it. House sparrows do something similar around covered feeders. When the rain starts, sparrows often stay tucked into the narrow dry zone that the feeder's design creates. They aren't just braving the weather, they're taking advantage of a moment when their competitors have stepped aside. In a way, the rain becomes their opportunity, a small window where the buffet is nearly all theirs. Now let's step deeper, because the birds that did take cover aren't just sitting there doing nothing. Their world during a heavy rain is filled with activity that no one on the outside gets to see. If you could somehow peel back the leaves of that dense shrub, you would find a bird deeply focused, preening. This is intense, methodical feather-by-feather work, like a jeweler with a delicate necklace. Each feather has thousands of microscopic hooks that keep it aligned. Rain disturbs those hooks. Every out-of-place barb is a small crack in the bird's insulation and flight ability. So the bird works through them, restoring order, shape, and function while hiding. Studies found that garden birds spend significantly more time preening during and right after rain. This is not comfort. This is repair. This is a bird performing maintenance on the only body it has. It is using its own bill in the middle of an environment that is trying to break its survival gear. On top of that, birds hunkered down go into a mode researchers call passive thermoregulation. The bird pulls one leg up into its belly feathers to cut heat loss and turns its body against the wind. In very long, harsh vents, it can even lower its metabolism slightly, entering a mild version of torpor. So the picture starts to change. The empty, rain-soaked yard outside your window is not really empty. It is packed with tiny beings running incredibly detailed survival routines right under your nose. They are perfectly aware of every shift in the wind, rise in temperature, and every crack of thunder. The yard did not go quiet. You just lost sight of what was in it. Now here is the part to notice. The first 10 minutes after the rain stops are the most alive. Something happens in that window that is almost impossible to describe until you watch it for yourself. The rain slows, it softens, it stops, and within seconds, a switch flips in the yard. Movement returns before you can even fully process the silence being broken. The birds that had disappeared come pouring back into open space in a very specific order. The dominant birds arrive first. The strongest male cardinal drops onto the feeder before the female. The top chickadee in the local flock lands before the others. The blue jay claims the platform first. In about 2 to 3 minutes, the entire social hierarchy of your yard reassembles itself and fast forward. And it isn't just at the feeder. The lawn and flower beds become foraging gold mines for a short window. Worms are still exposed, and insects that were hiding under leaves are displaced by the moisture. Robins work the grass with sudden speed, and starlings sweep across the yard in a quick walk. Data has shown that both bird activity and species diversity in home yards spike sharply in the hour after rain. More kinds of birds and more interesting behavior than you'll see at almost any other moment of the day. So here is a challenge. The next time it rains, don't turn away from the window when it stops. Give yourself 10 quiet minutes to just watch behavior you have missed 1,000 times before. Leave a comment below sharing the name of the bird you most love seeing in your yard. Subscribe with notifications on, because the next video in this series builds directly on what you're learning. Now we come to something bigger that goes beyond feathers and behavior and even beyond the storm itself. Rain reveals a truth about your yard that clear weather hides by forcing birds to reveal where they feel safe. When you start paying attention to where they go, you begin to see that they are not choosing randomly. They are heading again and again to very specific, trusted spots like the holly by the fence, or the thick middle of the old spruce, or the tangled corner of fallen branches. Birds return to the same shelter sites, storm after storm, sometimes over multiple years. They build a mental map of their neighborhood and remember which ones stay dry and warm. They remember which ones are big enough to fit into with a friend when the temperature drops. And they update that map over time as bushes grow, trees fall, and your yard changes. Think about what that means. These birds are not visitors passing through. They are residents. They have a map of your property that is more detailed than yours, knowing every single branch. They know which corner of your fence blocks the wind and which shrub gives them the driest core. Every dense shrub you keep and every brush pile you don't clean up is added to that map. You are, without ever realizing it, building the skeleton of a survival system for small lives. The rain is one of the very few times you get to see even a hint of that hidden world. Imagine your yard right now during a downpour. It looks like nothing is out there, but now you know. Somewhere in the holly, a cardinal is pressed against the wood, feathers tight, back to the wind. Somewhere in the oak, a chickadee is dozing in mild torpor, saving energy for the change in sky. Somewhere on the lawn, a robin is pulling worms because for him this is a feast. The yard did not empty. It reorganized into 100 little quiet dramas shaped by instinct. When the pressure lifts and the light changes, something invisible tells them the moment has come. They will pour back out to the feeders, the lawn, and the branches to find each other. If you are standing at the window, you will get to see the first ripple of that return. There is something almost sacred about it. It is not just a wet bird landing on a fence. It is the end of a survival routine that has been running for hours in the shadows of your yard. Watching birds is about entering into the lives of creatures that live parallel to ours on different terms. Their sense of safety is built out of shrubs and cavities and memories we barely understand. But when we begin to notice the pattern under the pattern, our own yards begin to feel bigger, more alive, more important, more worth protecting for the creatures that live there. That old brush pile in the corner suddenly matters more, and that messy hedge looks different. Your yard is not decoration. Your yard is infrastructure. It is a network of tiny homes. The next rainstorm will give you a chance to see a piece of the world and watch the hush. You will see the social order snap back together and the lawn come alive with hunting. Every storm they live through teaches them something, making them experts on your yard specifically. You are becoming part of a personal story that generations of small lives are writing. The next time the feeders start to empty in that eerie way, don't turn away. Stay and watch. Tell me in the comments what your favorite shelter spot is, and I'll see you in the next rain.